Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are going to call this meeting to order, and we are grateful to be holding this meeting today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lillooet people. I ask that someone please move approval of the agenda.
I would like to change the agenda a little.
Okay,
Amend
the variance to the agenda to include.
We have a presentation coming up from Squamish Food Policy Council.
Yeah.
Item 11.2 is a request for funding from Squamish Climate Action Network, and I think it will be better placed immediately after the presentation rather than at the end of the meeting.
Yep. Okay, so we will consider 11.2, which is a request. We'll move that up to be dealt with under 4. Yeah, well, 4.1. It's they're one and the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone fine with that? So with the varied agenda, could I ask that someone please approve that? Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Herford. Any other changes to the agenda? I guess one change is that because the delegation is here in the waiting room, we will skip number 3 and we'll come back to that after 4.1 is handled. Okay. All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. On to 4.1. Good morning. We are ready for your presentation. This is Crystal Tenbrink. She's the Executive Director of the Squamish Climate Action Network. I encourage anyone in the Squamish area to go by and check out the community garden. It is the most inspiring space that I've been to in a long time. And the work that you do, Crystal, is inspiring. That's an understatement. I'm going to turn it over to you. You go ahead with your presentation, and you do have 10 minutes, and we've left a little room for questions, so we will hear from you. Go ahead.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Hello. Are you okay? You're sharing it. Okay, one moment. I'm just going to get up my notes because I don't think I can see my notes here. Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Tenbrink. I work as the Executive Director for the Squamish Climate Action Network. We've been around since 2009, and we oversee the Food Policy Council, which is an arm to specifically do various food policy initiatives and also implement the Squamish Valley Agriculture Plan, which is in its 5th year that I'm presenting on, which it's crazy how long, how much time has flown by. So you've received already some information about what we completed in 2024 with a huge emphasis on the food hub. And so today, I wanted to just share with you a little bit of an update as to how the feasibility wrapped up and where we're at now with implementation, and then allow for some Q&A. Next slide, please. So as you know, as you may recall, the Food and Farm Hub Feasibility Report started in 2023 in January and ended in May of 2024. So it was funded by the Rural Economic Development and Infrastructure Program from the Ministry of Economic Development, District of Squamish, Community Futures, Howe Sound, and the project included 4 key phases. It was a background review, engagement, financial feasibility, and governance. And so together, all of these phases really present a holistic approach to implementing what a food hub may look like in our region and what may serve our needs the most. And so I just would like to say a thank you to all folks that were involved in that. And I'm excited to share the recommendations with you. Next slide, please. What is a food hub? Just a reminder, it is a network of food and farm infrastructure within a region to strengthen the area's local food economy. And it is essential, absolutely at the root of that collaboration of all of our agriculture, our farmers, our agri-food businesses, other organizations are part of collaborating in order to improve the system with aggregation, distribution, etc. Next slide, please. The project goal overview, it was really to assess the feasibility of the food hub. What does it financially actually look like? And how can we learn from many other communities across North America and beyond who have already been here and done that? And so what can we take and use as best practices, and what should we make sure not to pursue that perhaps has been a challenge for some communities? We were able to determine the target products and services that the hub should address, explore governance structures, recommendations for preferred approaches, recommendation for infrastructure needs, operational and management needs, as well as partnership opportunities. And lastly, to provide an analysis of financial outcomes and potential, and just assessing risks. Next slide, please. So the overall goal, as you can see, is to promote collaboration amongst local farmers and the food and beverage industry, agri-food providers, to really explore what this phased approach may look like within the region. Next slide. Here's a few components of that you've likely already gone through. I'm not going to read through them. I'm going to get to the more exciting components. So I'm hoping that you've had a chance to read through the feasibility study, and we'll get into some more exciting details. Next slide. So with the Sea to Sky Food Hub model, it can be developed as a multiple phase approach using what we're kind of calling a hub and spoke model. The early emphasis sort of was on online retail sales as well as cold storage units as sort of the two top priorities for needs. And we're hoping, well, the Food Hub will secure members and customer commitments as we sort of phase into it slowly. So we're not looking to kind of develop all 3-4 phases all at once. We're going to start it slow and pilot it, make sure that it is operating well and that it's meeting the needs of the community and the farmers and businesses before we scale and expand. This also helps mitigate risk, and it also looks more attractive to funders that we can have some more stats to quantify or qualify for valuing the work that we're doing and how it's impacting our community. There are a number of benefits to this model. It's quite flexible and nimble. So as things grow, as demand changes, we can shift with it. As grants become available, they're kind of, sometimes there's 3-year grants for different government things. Sometimes it's only for 1 year. So this hub and spoke model, this whole flexible, nimble approach allows us to respond to the climate within the funding community as well. Next slide, please. So it's so essential that you folks and other local governments are part of this with us from the ground up, which you are. We're so thankful for that. The District of Squamish has been, and particularly the Economic Development team has been really instrumental. We've now been working with many other staff as part of this plan. We've been doing some preliminary engagement with the Squamish Nation, and they've just recently launched their climate legacy plan. So we're seeing where there might be some synergies to possibly explore working together or supporting one another. Institutions, provincial agencies, and of course, all of the different community groups, with a big emphasis on the Pemberton Farmers Institute, because they are really the host for so many farmers. Next slide, please. So a lot of the targeted users for this project will be folks within the Pemberton to Squamish area. That was for the majority of users, but we have been engaging with farms that are in the Caribou and Lillooet region that really serve the whole Sea to Sky as their target market. So we will be working with them as well. It will be for new and micro scale, small scale farms and food producers, food and beverage enterprises, startups, and of course, nonprofits, for-profits, and social enterprises. I did want to just share a few stats that we had 41 farms that were counted in 2021 between Squamish and Mount Currie. And I know that sort of changes every year. So as we update the food asset map, it's always really fun to kind of figure out who's still around and who's new and who might be working together. Anyway, so we are updating that food asset map regularly and trying to keep tabs on what's happening and who's up and running. Next slide, please. So So generally, so in 2019, the District of Squamish did an agri-food impact study, and they found that, I mean, this feels really outdated now, but on average, $96 million was spent on food, that Squamish residents spent on food per year. And so if and when we get to a place where we can build out an online food hub to directly support the food and farm players in the community within our region, we're hoping to penetrate at least 1% of that. And if we were going off the stats from 2019, we're looking at almost $1 million. And so we felt confident that this would cover our time and online services, distribution, delivery, that kind of thing. And so just wanted to, share that stat with you, but obviously, again, it feels really outdated now post-COVID. So next slide, please. So in exchange for online, if and when we move forward through an online sales platform, the Food Hub would charge a commission for about 25% to cover its overhead expenses, deliveries, like I just mentioned. And then, of course, there's additional services that the Food Hub could provide with to include a commercial kitchen, commissary kitchen, and also a cold storage unit, of which we're looking at different models to ensure that it's more of a service and less of a profit generating service to the farms and to customers. So we're diving in deep right now and fleshing out a lot of these things out. Next slide, please. So right now it's exciting. We're in the implementation phase, and we are soft launching a cold storage unit in Squamish in the downtown, still finalizing details on the exact location, and also the commissary kitchen in the clock tower building that's in the Activity 55 space, which is an underutilized kitchen that we're looking to breathe life back into it, update equipment and things like that. The cold storage unit, we've got already some initial buy-in from at least 6 committed farms within Squamish-Lillooet region. And we're excited to start shaping this up. We have received some funding already for this. And so we're excited to see how this might serve this community and the farm businesses throughout the Sea to Sky to hopefully possibly expand in the future. We are also looking at figuring out what some of these governance structures are and how to manage these operations. Next slide, please. So I'd love to share with you just where we are at, continue to share where we're at right now. We have our finished final report. We have a partnership agreement with the District of Squamish that's freed up some funding for 4 years each year. This really allows this initial funding, just like the funding that we receive from the implementation of the SFAP. It's so essential that we have support. Like, it looks amazing when we're applying to funders that we have this partnership agreement and also funding from local governments to demonstrate commitment. And it just looks so much more attractive when we're going after grants. Like I mentioned, we are underway in progress with the district for the cold storage and commercial kitchen. We have ongoing fundraising happening. We've already secured $55,000 with numerous conversations happening right now. So you can see a few other things. I will just share that the online food hub marketplace idea, there's quite a lot of conversations that need to keep happening with farmers. So I will be presenting at the Pemberton Farmers Institute AGM in March and sharing with them the outcomes of the food hub and how we can continue to have conversation to possibly shape something to make sure that it's going to meet the needs of the majority of folks who want to participate. So there's so much to share. I will wrap it up there and hand it over to you folks for some questions. And of course, given the limitations of time, I'm happy to meet with you anytime to share more ideas and hear more thoughts from you. We are looking at, we're pretty aggressively fundraising right now. So if you have some other ideas, is open, we're all ears.
Thank you so much. I will turn it over to questions. I'll go to Director Birch Jones first.
Thank you, Chair. Crystal, this is just great work. Hooray for you guys. And we're doing a sort of parallel process in the Lillooet area with our little hub. And I'm glad to hear you mention Lillooet as being included in your potential marketing and so forth. The better, the more partnerships, the better. We've run up against GAP as being a bit of a problem, GAP certification for some of our producers. And I just wonder if it's not the place here to have that conversation, but maybe if you could connect with Megan Rempel or currently Jackie Rasmussen with our hub, share some solutions on that front, perhaps. And mostly, I just want to commend you. This is really, really important work, and thank you. Good report.
Thank you so much. And I will connect with Megan or Jack, and I would like to go for a tour as well. Yeah.
Director Rainbow, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to second Director Birch-Jones' comments that it's incredibly important work. And it's critical that we do strengthen food security in this area. My question is, you have your range at the moment is Pemberton to Squamish, and I wonder if you'd consider extending that through to Britannia Beach. And the reason I mention it now is because things are beginning to happen right there with regard to food, which I think are quite important. We have a community garden that is ready to go for this year, 32 separate plots. There are other places in the community that produce more food than families can eat. So there's a need there already for some help to move food from where it's being grown to stores or whatever. There are currently 3 food outlets in Britannia. There'll soon be 2 more, and there'll soon be a grocery store. So I think there's a good case for including that in the total picture.
Yeah, thanks, Director Rainbow. Our bad. Britannia Beach and Furry Creek are included in this.
Okay.
For sure. And we're hoping to have customers from both of those places, and they will be marketed to for sure once the cold storage unit gets up and running. And I already am in touch with somebody who's exploring starting her own agri-food business who lives in Britannia. So I should change the language. Britannia, the area D South is definitely included.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Pettengill, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. It's all fantastic, and maybe a little bit of a similar question. But on the Squamish to Lillooet Food Hub example map, and it says example, but when I look at where all the icons are, they really seem to make sense, except for there's no food hub node in Whistler. And I'm just wondering, is this just purely an example and I shouldn't get too fussed about it? Or is there some sort of reason why that would be the case? I'm just really curious.
Yeah, not intentional at all. I think it was a visual that we did many years ago and keep using it. But Whistler is on our radar. There's actually a need for a cold storage unit in Whistler as well for delivery for online sales direct from farms. And so I think that once we launch Squamish and see how that goes in the first year, we will likely pursue a cold storage in Whistler and possibly Pemberton as well. So it's those small phases, but there is a need. Farmers do deliver on, other direct online sales already, Whistler, and we've already had conversations about it. So Whistler's included.
Thank you.
Director Stoner, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, thanks for the presentation, all the work. I want to highlight something that was in the report with regards to a really amazing milestone of securing an agreement with VCH to provide food through the farm school. And I am curious around how much additional capacity you think there is for that level of supply agreement, or if that's kind of like the extent that the school farm will be able to supply at like a commercial corporate, like bigger scale, or if there's other partners that you think that the school farm might be able to provide more produce into.
Yeah, great question. So we were able to secure, it took a year to secure a contract to be a food provider from the school farm to the hospital. The intention was, with that experience, was that we would go through the experience, start the project, start selling food directly to the hospital, which provides about 300 meals a day on average. And that includes for their long-term care facility, Hilltop. There's a few hospice beds as well as for the hospital beds. And our intention is that they would be working with other farms as well. I think that while this is not the first local food procurement contract they have, the Salish Sea Regenerative Farm over in Sechelt that's run by the Sechelt Nation kind of broke that ground a few years ago. So I think this is an opportunity to dip our toes in and for them to dip their toes into something new. Already staff, we start selling to them probably in a month or so, and people are super excited. And so we're really thrilled about this. We're hoping this is really part of that procurement work that's bigger picture procurement work and building relationships and really fostering those connections between farmers and institutions. So we're hoping this is just the start of it.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think we will, I will ask for a member of the board to receive your report and your delegation. Moved by Director Rainbow, second by Director Herford. Any final comments from anyone? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And we are going to consider your letter of, which is in our agenda. It's 11.2, and this is a request for funding of $40,000 to implement the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan and leverage additional funding towards the implementation. Go ahead. You moving it?
I certainly will.
And do we know where that funding is coming
Yes,
from?
the agricultural plan includes the district of Squamish and the upper Squamish Valley, which is in Area D. We have SLRD staff and district staff working on it, so it really is a joint project. And $40,000, I've spoken to Director Herford. We think it should be coming from Southern PILT funds, which are intended for use on projects that cover the district and Area D. So that's my motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
and you're seconding it. Did you have a question?
Not just now to it.
Okay,
Okay.
great, awesome. Any other comments or questions at this point? Go ahead.
Yes, I'll speak to it. Just thank you for the work on this. And I think even though you're working from an admittedly older numbers there from, I think there's some 2019 numbers in there. We know that the impacts of not just pricing, but food security for our areas is becoming more and more important, particularly with what I'll just call instability to the south, if not, and more widely than that. So I think this is a great initiative, even in the before times, but even more important than ever. And I do think it's an appropriate place for the funds to come from at this point. I know that there are some collectively we did talk about the impact of this coming into Pemberton and also to a lesser extent, but out as far as Lillooet. But I think the staff time and that involvement sort of covers that off. I just want to flag over time that this might be something that deserves broader support expressed through the funding mechanism. But at the same time, at this point, I think we're in a good place. I'm happy to see this move forward.
Great. Thank you. All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Crystal. Always nice to have you here. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Okay. With that, could I ask that someone please make the motion that we go into closed under 3